Exercise 12, Creo 5.0. Today's exercise, we're going to take a look at how to import two-dimensional legacy files, for example, like a DWG file or a DXF file, and how to convert those to 3D using that geometry. So as you can see here, here's a wheel that I had brought in, and it was a DWG file, and I constructed the 3D model from it. So let's see how that's done. Start off by going to File and Open, and then make sure you set the type of file to All Files. Now, if you've already gone there, these files are actually located on vertani1.com. And so you could actually, there it is, there's the link for vertani1.com. Type that in, and then just go to the part files, and on the white column here, find the exercise 12 DWG and click on it, download it, and then you could open it from Creo. You can't open it by just double clicking on it. You're gonna have to open up Creo and go to File, Open, and locate the file that way. Okay, so I already have it here. I'm gonna click on the DWG, and I'm gonna hit Import. And now you can import it into a drawing, for example, but we don't want to do that right now. But a drawing is helpful because it brings in all the dimensions, and so you're actually able to read it as if it's a print. But if you have a paper copy of it, you don't really need it. However, though, when you're modeling, sometimes you're going to want to take a look at the details on the drawing for fillets and things like that. Although in this video, I'll show you how to use the analysis measure tool to check for some of those parameters. Okay, but we're not going to bring it into a drawing. We're actually going to bring it into a part because we want to make a 3D model from it. So over here, make sure you click on Use Template. If you don't select Use Template, you're going to end up with a blank template. Thus, you won't have like a front, top, and right plane. You'll have to create the planes, which isn't a bad thing. It just takes extra time, and it's nice to use what you can out of an existing plane. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and name this E12, and I'm going to call it D because I've done this part a couple times already. All right, I'm going to hit OK. Now, your screen background may be difficult to see. It depends on your settings. I set this up earlier under File and Options. And then under System Appearance, I set the interface to dark. If you set it to light, it's just a little more difficult to see it. So, and you could flip between these pretty easily. So if you just determine that you want to flip it back, that's fine. But that's what I did there. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And then another thing, when you're importing these types of files, it's not a bad idea to increase the actual precision of the document. What I've discovered when I've had it set on low precision, there's gaps sometimes that it seems as though it's caused. And that actually may not be Creo's fault so much as it was the legacy data that when it was created in the old CAD system, wherever it came from. That might be an issue. But so for this, you want to go to Prepare and Model Properties. And then you'll see Accuracy. Click on Change and just set it to 0.0001 and hit Regenerate. And then you could go ahead and hit Close here. That isn't 100% necessary all the time, but I've noticed it does help with certain files. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and zoom up here. We could see that what we have here is actually a cross-section of this wheel. And the cross-section views are great when it's a circular object. Hence, you could actually take this geometry and revolve it 360 degrees. And we already have a center line in there. Actually, we're going to have to copy some of this geometry, and then we'll go and spin it around with the revolve. However, there's different strategies that sometimes work better than others. Okay, another thing is always to make sure that your print is to scale and to the proper size. So remember, you could always go to Analysis, and if you know the overall parameter or dimension, or if you could compare the dimensions from, like I said, if you bring it into a drawing to the geometry you have here, you could go to the measure tool. And for example, you could click on diameter and easily find out by clicking on this what the actual size is. And so we see it's an 8-inch diameter, and we could verify that to the print, and then we know that it's to scale. Because a lot of times drawings, if you know, that they're sometimes drawn to a lesser scale or larger sometimes even. So you want to make sure you have the proper scale. And in this case, it's a 1-to-1 drawing. And you can also look at the print, and usually it'll say it's, of course, if it's full scale or 1-to-1, you're in good shape. Otherwise, you'll have to scale it. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and if we zoom out here, with the strategy we want to approach with this is that if we were to take the circle, for example, and try and extrude that, we would end up with a cylinder. However, notice there's a taper on both sides all the way around, so that's not going to be easy to reproduce by working from the front view orientation. You can get there, it's just that there's an easier way if you take this section view. So let's begin by selecting this plane right here. And you could go to Revolve. Now yours might have rotated 90 degrees. It depends on what orientation you had the screen at the time, how it's going to look. Regardless, by now, if this is an advanced lesson, you should know how to kind of figure out how rotation is. I'm not going to go back and try and set it to front. I mean, if you really wanted to, I suppose you could go to the view orientations and go to front and reset it. Okay, but now what I want to do is I'm going to go to Centerline up here and click on this, which was a center line, and draw over it a horizontal center line. And that's going to be what we're going to revolve around. Now looking at these two profiles, we have a top profile and bottom here. Notice the top profile has a big gap in the center. We don't want that. If we spin this around using those two profiles, we will have two separate volumes, two rings that aren't attached. So we don't want that. So that's going to be a cutout later on. But we do want this bottom one. So you could go over here to project. And now I've had in the past in other versions where I was able to select loop or chain and it seemed to work. This version, I'm not sure why, or if it's just me, operator error. I might be doing something wrong, but I had to go in and select these individually. So if you do know why that's the case on this particular one, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and select it. It doesn't take but 30 seconds to do it. But it is nice when you can do a chain or a loop. It makes things a little easier so you don't have to select everything, especially if it's a complex model. But once I went through and I selected all those, now we can see it's shaded inside, so it means it's watertight, and we're ready to go ahead. And I'm going to hit close here, hit OK, and it should, because we have that center line, it should automatically start revolving. Now I'm going to middle mouse button hold here, and we can see our wheel. Okay, go ahead and hit apply. Now what we want to do is we want to take and move this over so that we could cut this pocket out here and then pattern it around. So here's what I would recommend doing. First of all, we want to start sketching on this surface right here. Start a sketch. Don't go to extrude or anything like that. Just go to sketch. And we want to we'll take this one right up here. So again, use your project, and you could select these entities all the way around and hit close and OK. Now with it selected, hit Control C on your keyboard. Control C is copy. You could also go up here to model and copy. We can see it's in our paste selection now because paste is available, so we should be in good shape. Now what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this, and we've exited out of the sketch, of course. Now we're going to sketch it on this plane. Now we could offset a plane and put it in the middle here, but we don't need to. We could actually click right on here, and we could go to sketch, and now I'm going to go to model and paste, and then just click, and you'll see the geometry will appear. Now up here you have the ability to make different references and such. If you grab this and move it, you can see it moves the whole thing, but it's scaled incorrectly. Up here is the scale factor. You can see it's twice the scale, over twice. So set it back to a 1 scale. So hit 1 and hit enter 1 time. And now with this little marker here, this is a really neat little tool. Get over it and hover over it, and then hold your right mouse button and drag it and snap it to this little green dot here. That cross is actually, and release it, that is actually the point for the top arc. Now we could go ahead and drag this down with just the ordinary left mouse button, back to the left mouse button, and then get it to the center and release it, and it should snap to it. And that's it. We now have it in position. We could go ahead and hit the green check mark here. However, it's interesting because in the past, I know with earlier versions, and I'm not sure, I don't always do this, I've had it to where I've adjusted the actual precision very high, like to 7 decimal places at one point in an older version. I wasn't able to do that quite here as easily. I got it to 4 decimal places. And when I had it at very high precision, I would not get these little red markers, which means that there's gaps. So not sure why that is happening. Again, any of you have any idea on that, please leave a comment. I've been using this for years, but the fact is I don't do this but maybe once a year, and so kind of lose track of exactly what happened or what I did last time sometimes. Okay, now when this happens, what you can do, rather than trying to add relations, I usually go in here, we can see there's a radius here of 0.25, and then there's a radius here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and right click on that and lock it. Okay, and then the same with this one. I'm going to right click on this one and then lock it. You could actually left click on it too. Oops, this one didn't take. Let me do that again. Lock it. There we go. Okay, now that we have those two locked, what I would recommend doing is actually deleting these 2 arcs. Click on this one, hit delete. And go ahead and click on this one and hit delete as well. Now we could go, and that means that we locked it down so it wouldn't accidentally move on us. So now we could go back to the sketch tab, go to the tangent ends 3-point arc, and reconnect these. Click from here to here. And then this one, click from here to here. Now sometimes if you have difficulty reattaching those, hit escape and try from one end to the other instead if it leaves an open area. But go ahead and middle click now, and now we have a water type boundary condition. We probably want to get tangency on these 2 ends too. So you can notice there's tangency here and here. So let's go ahead and add that in while we're here. Click on the tangent icon and click on that arc, this and that arc. And so now we've tried to preserve the geometry as best as we could and repair it at the same time, because when it had those red dots, we'd have some issues trying to extrude those. Like I said, that's an indicator of a sloppy sketch. Okay, so now we could just go ahead and hit OK, and we could go to extrude. And let's rotate. We can see the extrusion right here taking place. We actually want to remove material, so make sure you select that. And then over here, select that you want to go through all. Hit the green check. Okay, now there's little chamfers of 0.125 on here. And again, if you need to, you could open up the drawing, and I believe those dimensions are in there. But if I recall correctly, this is a 0.125. And we're going to leave it distance to distance, which if it's at 90 degrees, leaves it at 45. Or you could set it to 45. I'm going to select that edge and that edge. Hit apply. And now if we control select the extrude, because the chamfer is still in a selected state, we can now go over to the underneath pattern and go to geometry pattern. And for the direction, select axis. And if you don't have your axis turned on, make sure up here you turn it on and select the axis. You'll see the little dots appear. We actually want 5 instances, so type in 5, and then we need it equally distributed around the circle. So we could type in 360, which is 360 degrees, divided by 5. And that equates to 72 degrees for each one. And you could see them, they're equally spaced. And we could hit apply. And now our 3D model is complete. So again, when you're taking geometry or importing it from legacy data of older CAD systems or other CAD systems that were two-dimensional, this is a nice option to build your 3D models because there's not a whole lot of geometry regeneration. You're actually just copying and using the old data. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Let's go to File and Open. For your lab, again, make sure you're here, Creo Files, make sure it's all files, and you'll find the E12 DWG. Go ahead and hit Import on that one. And again, I would go with Sketcher on this and hit OK. Again, it's a very large drawing and you don't have a paper version of it. By all means, create a drawing and open that. And then you could open this up in a part too. So you could have two things. And you could toggle between the two, looking at the actual dimensions that are on there. Okay, let me try that again. That didn't seem to open up. Let me try that one more time. DWG part, call L12B just in case here. Okay, so here you can actually see this is geometry. This is actually a cover for a garden hose enclosure that you would see outside, and it has Native American artwork on it. These are glyphs, and essentially this is again a 2D file. Now to make it into 3D, like if you want a sheet metal part or something like that, what you can do here is we don't even have to make any new planes. We could actually sketch on this plane or go to extrude and steal what we want from it. So again, using project. And I actually haven't tested it on this one yet, but let's see what loop does. See if we could get it to loop around. I'm going to select this line and then click around here. And unfortunately, I'm having to help it, but it did manage to bring itself around a little bit there. Okay. Now if we want, we could put these in later, or we could actually start projecting these too. Let's say we take, let's try another loop again here. Click on that. Oh, and that one worked. It got the dragonfly. So you essentially just go through that. And, oh, you know, perhaps it's maybe a better idea to get that later. Let me delete that. I'm going to click on that delete. First, extrude the sheet metal that we see here. Okay. Did I accidentally extrude? So I think I might have made an error there. Hold on a second. Let me try that one more time. I'm going to select the front plane, start a sketch. I'm actually going to draw the, do the project again. Just go around. Okay, now I'm going to hit, in theory we should be able to separate this. I think it was because I used a loop on that last one that it, I didn't realize it didn't actually give us a water type boundary condition. It appeared as though it was not shaded in the middle. Not sure about that. Okay, anyhow, let's try another glyph here. Let's go to project. And see if this, there we go. It actually edits, see that it's not shaded inside there, thus it will actually be cut out. So I'm going to hit close, okay. And now we should be able to just extrude this, and we'll make it very thin, like 0.062. And we could go through and do all those, and that's part of your lab, is to go in and select those and see different methods there. And that concludes exercise 12.